Waifus advance! Welcome to Indecent Composure. I am one of your hosts, Aiden. The other host is Gibson, and we are going to talk.
That's it.
That's pretty much
bye.
It.
That's all you need for a premiere. It's all about the hook. If people like the hook, they're like, that was a good 5 seconds. I'm a subscribe.
I think we've already achieved our goal here.
Yeah. So clearly.
We wanted to talk about why we are, in fact, doing this channel in the first place.
Yes.
Because it's probably a good place to start.
Yes. Generally, when people see a YouTube channel, the first thing they think is, why did they do this? So I have some notes of referring back to some things. Basically, I want to give a brief history of kind of what personally inspired me to actually jump on this idea. It was your idea. But yeah, so I've been making content for ages. Literally, I think I was like 10 years old. I remember it was around November of 2011 when my dad either like let me borrow or I asked if I could use like his complete shit potato camera that was probably cutting edge at the time. That was just like it was a flip camera. It was like a tiny little rectangle with just like one button to record and a couple arrows to flip through clips. I had one of those
that was aquatic. It was an underwater camera, but it was one that had the same layout.
I mean, this flip camera, I don't think it was supposed to be waterproof, but it did survive a number of puddles and things.
I think mine died due to water, so that's quite ironic.
Oh my god. That's perfect. Flip is they mispackaged them all. That's all that happened. No, but anyhow, yeah, and so like I started making videos with my toys as a child, like a good budding YouTuber does when they're a kid. And yeah, I've had a couple of YouTube channels and all sorts of content creation-y projects and crap, and I've struggled a decent bit with burnout and stuff. And that's kind of where this podcast comes in, because I think, like, due to a combination of just miscalculating ambition and like overcommitting, doing certain things, doing the same things for too long, I feel like I've always had kind of a rocky relationship with actually putting content on the interwebs, which I like doing. I like broadcasting myself, but I've even messed around with kind of a podcasty thing before, very briefly in the past. And as much as I enjoy it, like I say, it's always been a rocky relationship because there's always certain things to do with obligation and, like I said, like ambition and overcommitment into certain projects and stuff. That's just I feel like I've always struggled with finding a good balance of like still putting in work into stuff and feeling good about what I'm making as like a content creator online, whilst not letting it become the only thing I do and kind of over consuming things. And so for a while I've been like stuck in a block for, I don't know, like, it feels like over a year now, and my main outlet for making stuff I just haven't felt motivated to use for a while. And then you had the idea to just do like a podcast thing, because we're always like discussing our dream like YouTube channels and other ideas, like what would we do if we could get rid of all the baggage and things and all the history and obligations that we've set up for ourselves over the years and all the stress of projects that we've attempted and left unfinished or what have you, and what if we could just start with a clean slate and stuff. So we're like, let's just do a podcast where we talk about things, and that's the whole thing. And yeah, I really like that sort of idea. I like things that are not meant to be super professional or super structured. So yeah, I mean, pretty much all works out.
These are like, a lot of episodes will be thematic and stuff like that. We'll have different like goals and whatnot. But other than that, I mean, this is pretty much just literally putting, well, I mean, there's always microphones, but like putting a recording device onto our conversations. Because like Gibson and I are up like every night like past midnight for both of us, and there's 2 hours separating us.
This is literally just our normal like routine, but we're just gonna record it and monetize it and take over the world.
It's a natural process here. And
it is.
I mean, my story, I'm not gonna get super detailed myself, but like it's pretty damn similar. I think we'll get more into like our creative ventures and like what we are currently working on and our current mindset with that stuff here in a little bit. But I, from a very young age, I mean, I can't be certain that it was like the first job I ever wanted. I know it was one of the very first that I considered, but I knew like directing, or back then, you know, making movies was something I always was very interested in, and I really loved movies. And so, I mean, a lot of different career choices were kind of going in and out of my mind, but by the time that YouTube came around, which I was watching YouTube way back in like, I want to say like 2005 and like on, but like I finally came onto YouTube with my first YouTube channel, which is actually a gaming channel that's now been long abandoned and was not up for very long. And I think it was just kind of like an extension of that interest in like making movies and stuff and the videos, but I ended up making a different channel after that was much more successful, and that's actually how Gibson and I met. And that was where I spent most of my time on YouTube from 2013, technically to the present, even though it's kind of dead now, which is kind of the same
mildly
thing
low-key dead.
Yeah,
yes.
I mean, Gibson's been putting up more videos than I have, but around when Kappa happened, he and I were both already, it's been well over a year, because he and I were already feeling the burnout from big projects that we overinvested in, and, you know, it's just a single person, and when you, like, we could do it. Like, we were doing these projects, we were pulling it off, but it was reducing your quality of life when one person's literally living day in and day out to produce something of really high caliber.
Yeah.
And it's just exhausting, and it caught up with us. And then Kappa happened, and I know that was like, that just tipped us over the edge. And that, I think, like, we were kind of, like, we took different approaches to it at the time. We're not going to get into that right now, but we eventually bounced back when we realized Kappa wasn't as immediately lethal or as bad as it could have been.
It's kind of funny that it had such an impact, because now it's just another in a long list of random like YouTube updates.
It really is, because after we bounced back, we realized that like Kappa was kind of just more of like the reality check. It wasn't really the main, like, it was just, because when we tried bouncing back, we ended up just like slowly setting back into the same mindset. When like there was a very brief period there where we were like, oh, we can do this, we're back, and then we were like, yeah, no, this is still like. We were making big changes. I know I made a bunch of active changes. I know Gibson made a bunch of active changes to try to reduce the load on what we were putting out, and it just still was a really big burden. And now I literally just uploaded like the other day with a 6-month gap. I didn't upload for a whole year. Gibson's been uploading probably like, you know, 5 or 6 times within that period of time or something like that. Maybe that's undershooting it. I don't know exactly how much you've been posting.
I think it's undershooting it, but I've been gone for like 3 months now, and it's just straight, so, you know, I'm making up for it.
Yeah, so he was falling off too. But yeah, like Gibson said, now we're just like, hey, let's just do this, because that's another thing that I was really feeling, is that I actually made another channel towards the end of last year where I was going to be able to branch out and just talk about basically anything I wanted, because my previous channel that I was having success with was too focused, and I already had an audience that was expecting that kind of focus. And I know Gibson has multiple other channels as well, and he's had the same issue where
I have multiple channels, and they're all hemmed into specific topics that I burn out on eventually. It's great. I'm an amazing planner.
So I'm gonna be honest. I think that channel that I tried doing towards the end of the year is probably gonna be dead if we end up liking this, because this channel is gonna be so much easier, and it's gonna cover the same area for me, where we're gonna talk about anything. So that's, I mean, any of you who are coming over from any of our other channels, obviously we're gonna shout out this channel there. We're not gonna, this is not linked, this channel is not heavily linked to any of our other stuff.
No.
But it still, any of you that are coming over, you're more than welcome. You know, if you like us as personalities, as people, well, I shouldn't say personality, because that's actually a big goal too here, is that we want to separate ourselves from that persona, from those names attached to the channels. We just want to be Aiden and Gibson. And so if you guys find it interesting, then I hope you stick around and listen. But it's don't expect anything specific. I mean, obviously, who we are is not going to change, so our interests are still going to... those things will still be there. But it's not like we're going to be just doing one thing on this channel. That's like the exact opposite of what this whole channel is going to be.
And for brand new people who don't know who we are at all, hello, and sorry for a vague, long, historic rambling that probably made you all go, what the hell is going on?
And, you know, probably most
anyhow.
of you haven't actually been introduced to us through this video, and you're just probably curious and coming back to it, or this podcast.
Probably.
Because we do plan on expanding these out eventually at some point. I mean, that would be nice if we could get these podcasts up on platforms other than just YouTube. But for right now, they're literally just going to be on YouTube. So,
yeah.
But
yeah, I think like to cap off, like I just like apologized to the new viewers about like the ramble, and I'm like, I've got one more piece to it though. To cap off everything that we were talking about there about like kind of what inspired us to start this and stuff. Like I guess I kind of want to cap it off with just like the important lesson I feel like I finally learned from all the like failed kind of content artistic YouTubery type projects that I've done and started and in many cases never finished. And the lesson I think I've learned is, as simple as it may be, just if there's something that you don't have to do and you also don't want to do it, then you can stop doing it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, you know, I was talking about like artistic burnout and like ambition and stuff. Another big thing for me that has kind of tormented me with just art in general is creating obligation for myself that just doesn't exist. Like, if you're doing this as a job, then that's obviously completely different, and I have no experience with that. But I've always had a habit of not only being ambitious with the art that I want to create, but also just over-investing in its importance to, like, my identity and stuff.
Yeah.
To the point where it starts to just weigh on you, even though there's no external pressure whatsoever, beyond, like, whatever subscriber base I may have had on previous channels and stuff, which was never particularly huge. And even then, like, you're not beholden to your subscribers unless it's your job. You don't literally have to upload stuff if you don't want. And finally, just accepting that unabashedly was really important. And as well, like, I messaged you, we were just talking about this particular message that I sent you when we were planning this out, where I was like, dude, we're gonna make a podcast thing because we want to.
Yeah, that
not because we feel like we have to.
To like, I want to say, well, it was actually this time. It was a year ago. It was this time last year we were talking about this exact same thing. And I mean, it's roughly around here. I'm not going to try to remember the exact dates, but Gibson and I both came back to our previous channels from the Kappa break, and we basically had it was at least 1 week, but it might have been even 2 weeks, where he and I were like pretty consistently almost every day talking about it, like why we wanted to do certain things, or our new mentality to stuff. And that was the main focus. If we could sum up the backbone of our whole discussion, it was, we don't want to do this anymore. And we don't want, and the want was our favorite word for that whole like period.
It was.
And now it like, you know, teetered off, and we'd referenced every once in a while, but then when Gibson said that the other day, it really hit home. Like, it just sunk in. I was like, damn, this is great. And I'm just super excited about it. Super excited about this.
Yeah, same. I'm in the same boat. It feels genuinely fresh.
It does.
Yeah. And as well, like, with it being so casual and stuff, like, because I used to do live streaming and stuff as well. And for a long time, my live streams were very, very much, and they were this way when I stopped doing them as well, just sit down, see who shows up, and just talk to chat, and that's it. And they were always really fun. And then at some point, I started more of a like show thing out of them, trying to be more professional, almost talk showy, have guests on every time and stuff. And it was in a period where, with all the content I was making, streaming or otherwise, I was placing like just an unhealthy degree of importance on professionality and being really slick.
Yeah.
Hey guys, make sure to slap that like button and subscribe. And like I would literally be hemming in trying to control my guests and stuff, even when the conversation was really fun because I was so determined, and myself, because I was determined to keep it like, this is the time and this is the time we have to do this, and these are the sections that go in this order. And you know what happened? Not only was it not fun, my views on those streams fucking tanked. Like no one liked them for that period. I had to stop doing it for the streams to be fun and also like worth doing again. And yeah, so that's another thing I'm excited about, is just moving past that bullshit. I have to say, like, okay, well, the way I'm about to phrase this is going to make it sound more purposeful than it has been. It's been more of an organic process, but, like, I've found myself slowly unsubscribing from, you know, every channel that has that slap that like button persona going on to some extent. And I used to really admire those channels and follow a lot of stuff. I used to follow a lot of like channels and things that were like, here's how we're going to help you build your brand. And after a while, I'm like, you know, all my favorite channels are really unique and personable. And while it's impossible to determine the real level of authenticity a creator is giving you, I have a pretty like good sense that most of my favorite creators are pretty darn authentic. Mm-hmm. And after a while, just the YouTubery personality, persona, whatever, just really wore down on me, and I slowly abandoned it myself. And yeah, anyhow, I'm on a tangent now, but that's another thing I'm happy to say goodbye to, basically.
And we're glad to say hello to tangents. Remember, like, when we'd have to, like, record a big video and an update, and then we had to make sure, rein ourselves in and cut out me in particular, I know I was very much prone to the like chop edit style, where I'd literally cut out the gaps between words and stuff to really just cram it all in there. And I
used to do that too. Brutal. I used to literally cut out every pause. I'm like, how many shitty jump cuts can I put in here? And then at some point, people started making fun of jump cuts instead of telling you to use them. And then I realized they were right.
So if you haven't got the idea yet, or the general vibe, we really don't motherfucking give a piece of shit fucking care in the world as to like any of that like fucking restraint that we held over ourselves.
We
before.
Don't care about restraint.
I mean,
so if this is boring, or if it's just two dumbasses swearing about things that they either love or hate, that's the point.
Just in
we're
case
putting
we
in
didn't
no
cuss
ambition to make it super nice and professional or super like well put together. It's supposed to be a mess. It's a glorious mess.
Yes.
That's the plan, or the lack of a plan rather.
It feels really nice to be able, like, I know it may sound like juvenile to some people, but to me, honestly, one of the biggest easiest and most dynamic ways I can feel the freedom of actually talking or doing this channel compared to my previous ones is just the fact that I can fucking cuss. Because it's like, I was so peachy clean on my last channel that literally when I accidentally slipped up, or maybe it was once like when, and I didn't even say so, maybe I said shit or something, but there was maybe like, a time someone referenced that I cussed, and one of my viewers in a live stream absolutely lost it. Like, they were genuinely shocked that I, like, even knew what these words were. And Gibson, I remember at that time, was, like, laughing his ass off because he said, they have no idea that you cuss like a trucker in private. And that's...
Yes.
So I always, like... Not that I have anything against people that do that, but for me, I'm more relaxed.
Yeah, I mean, if you naturally just don't use cuss words, then cool. But I would have to restrain myself to avoid it.
Yes.
It does not come naturally.
It does not come naturally. But speaking of things worthy of cussing over, did we want to quickly talk about the new thing?
Oh no, the new thing.
Yeah, I mean, this episode we wanted to mostly talk about ourselves and our creative past, but this is so new and fresh that it's like pretty good time to talk about it. So
let's dive in.
Now, obviously, I don't know how this is gonna work well, actually, by the time we get this podcast up on any other platform, it'll already be out, so it's not really spoiler. But anybody who's watching now, we'll put a timestamp inside the description to skip past if you do not want spoilers. But we're gonna go just not even care about spoilers for Jurassic World Dominion right now, because there's been the leaks. First, it was the
well, if you still care about spoilers, then that's on you.
Yeah. So your last chance is right now. 3, 2,
Final
1.
warning.
Okay, we're spoiling stuff now. So
the Giga kills Rexy, and then they clone Rexy for a revenge arc. Probably, maybe. I hope so.
That was when we first found out about this. There was a picture. Our friend Eric actually showed us one picture of the Moros next to the Giga's mouth or something, and it was all feathered and everything. But then our friend Eric was describing the scene to us textually, like he was reading some text.
Yeah, there was a text leak or a script leak or just a synopsis leak. I don't really know.
Yeah.
We just got it from him.
he was reading it off to us, and he got to the point where we were already freaking out about the fact that all these different, he listed off the dinosaurs that were in there.
The first thing he says is that it takes place in the Cretaceous, in a specific time and place,
65 million years ago.
65 million years ago. Yeah, specifically 65 million years ago.
You see the freaking African trees, which is
it looks like the savannah.
It really does.
And you've the full, we don't see everything in the clips that are out yet, but the full list was Dreadnoughtus, Iguanodon, Pseudoceratops, Oviraptor,
Cats.
and then of course Giga and T-Rex, and Moros, and just basically a bunch of things that didn't live together. And it's so funny because my initial, we were just kind of aghast.
Yeah.
And it's the thing that kept cracking me up is that because they've been hyping up forever that there's going to be more accurate dinosaurs in this one. There's going to be feathered dinosaurs, and I assumed that would be a result of I think we were both hypothesizing forever ago that maybe now that the dinosaurs are loose outside the island, other companies will find them and start cloning them more accurately, with more pure DNA. Or something like that. That was our excuse that we were assuming they were going to use to have more accurate feathered raptors and things. And then sure enough, no, it's just because there's a random throwaway scene at the beginning that takes place in the Cretaceous. And just ever since we heard that there were going to be feathered dinosaurs, I'd been waiting to see how they were going to fuck that up. Or not. I mean, I wasn't completely pessimistic, but I was mostly pessimistic. And I was all worried about the designs.
We were not expecting it to be great. We were kind of prepared for it to be bad. Yeah. But then you phrased it so perfectly.
Yeah, I was I've spent all this time worrying about the way the designs were going to look. I never even considered that they'd be stupid enough in a Jurassic Park movie to put a bunch of things that didn't live in the same time or place in one scene that takes place in the Mesozoic. This is a new Land Before Time level construction of world building that I had not anticipated.
It was
and
a fuck up,
I get that these movies have never been accurate. There's always been massive deviations from the fossils and such, but the first movie, with the exception of the size of the raptors and the embellishments on the Dilophosaurus, it's mostly more so just out of date than it is horribly inaccurate for the time.
Mm-hmm.
And just this feels like a massive shark jump.
Yeah.
It feels like an absolute shift.
and the funny part too was that Eric didn't even get to finish talking about the way that the scene goes. He started talking about the way that the scene actually plays out, and then he said the Giga fights the T-Rex, and I stopped him right there. I said, "Wait, stop, let me guess. The Giga wins." And he said, "Yes." And I said, "Okay, I'm calling it right now. At the end of the movie, Rexy's killing the Giga. That's how the movie's going to end." And
because we see the mosquito lance, so technically that is Rexy. Rexy is a clone of this exact T-Rex, and she's going to get a revenge arc on a new random Giga or the same Giga that's been frozen in ice. I have no fucking idea. Wouldn't be surprised.
There's no fucking way that they're gonna have another big theropod kill a dinosaur, especially or T-Rex, especially Rexy above all, and then not have her get revenge at the end. I called it a revenge arc, but Gibson had a good point. He's it's not a revenge arc, Aiden. It's just gonna be a big empty bit in the middle. It's just the beginning and an end, and that's probably
there's
what
gonna
it is
be no arc.
It's not gonna be.
It's gonna be a setup and a payoff without anything in the middle. Probably.
Honestly, I don't know if it'd be better or worse if the movie was legitimately focused on Rexy hunting.
If the movie if the movie was ridiculously stupid and anthropomorphized and like hard committed to a superhuman revenge arc, like literally John Wick with dinosaur, that would be amazing. In the worst way. I mean, it'd be horrible, but it'd be amazing.
Either way, for me at this point, I'm like, obviously, disclaimer, I know that the rest of this movie could be legitimately amazing. But that's just gonna make me hate this sequence of the movie even more because it's so shit.
Yeah, exactly.
I am already, in my mind, I'm not gonna let myself get hurt over this movie or anything. In my mind, it's already just goddamn horrible, and that if it's gonna be good, it's gonna be a so bad it's good kind of thing. And I am genuinely, like Gibson and I were saying, we were both genuinely excited to see it because of just how fucking ridiculous it's gonna be. I'm
actually more excited. The idea that it was gonna be just like an inoffensive modern blockbuster with nothing remarkable about it, I was barely even motivated to see it. And now I want to see this piece of shit. Like, if it goes this off the wall, then I'm up for it. Cause like, yeah, I mean, I enjoyed the hell out of Fallen Kingdom, because I was literally laughing at it. Like it's easily the worst movie in the franchise thus far. That's saying something considering number 3 exists.
And I like number 3, but then again, I also acknowledge that it's probably not the best.
It's not. It's got specialness. But yeah, no, I was laughing my ass off at Fallen Kingdom when I saw it like super late, and I finally watched it while I was like slightly high on stuff from the dentist's office because I just had my wisdom teeth taken out, so I was like sort of drugged. And I was just sitting in a haze, just
you were just having
just
the best
enjoying
experience
stupidity
possible.
It was like, yeah, it was like a Scooby-Doo episode, man.
I forgot that you were
great.
You were all fucked up from the drugs, because that makes even more sense why you loved it so much.
Yes. I remember just cheering on the Stiggy Moloch as it just needlessly destroyed walls and things.
Oh my god. They're alive, like me. Let's not start talking about that fucking movie now.
To be clear, it's a bad movie.
Yeah.
To be clear, I was laughing at it, just in case anyone's wondering.
Yeah.
Yeah, brief history of my history with the movies. I think Jurassic Park's really good. I think The Lost World is whatever. I think the third one's funny and nostalgic, but pretty bad. I think the fourth one's really solid. And the fifth one is fucking hilarious. So there you go. Just in case you were curious, in case you need background.
Pretty much the exact same, except I do genuinely like 3 a little bit more than he does, although I'm not like objectively ranking it higher.
I think I like it just as much as you do, honestly. Okay. I just acknowledge it's bad.
Yeah, and so it's pretty much the exact same then. But yeah, we should probably move on from that.
Yeah.
But
we can talk more about it when it comes out, or when there's a trailer.
But in case you guys were interested, that's our current events section of this podcast.
Yes, very official.
It's more like taking a whiff of the fucking cow manure over the fence. It's not really.
Yes,
it is. Christ. It's the leftover excrement from Colin Trevorrow.
It's an assault on the senses.
Okay, so.
But yeah, so anyhow, the main thing of the episode, now we're getting to the actual topic.
30 minutes in.
We were gonna talk about, as our main topic, basically what we're working on right now, / what is inspiring us right now, just kind of what we're up to and what's making life cool or whatever. So I'll just let you take it away, because I feel like I've been talking more. So do it.
Yeah, well, I mean, especially, well, there's a combination of factors here, because one, we have the fact that we haven't been really doing anything on YouTube, because we've been doing a lot less, despite having way more free time thanks to a big P word. And no, I'm not talking about penis. I'd call it a dick. I'm a man, okay? I think we could say, I don't know if they actually are still demonetizing people for saying the C word. But I could say pandemic. I can say pandemic.
You can say pandemic.
I don't know if they were demonetized.
I don't know if we should literally call it by name.
Yeah. So the pandemic, that thing that's happening, that's giving us a ton more free time, objectively.
Yes.
But we haven't really been spending it on YouTube. And I know that we've both been doing very different things, but
yes.
I mean, I think I speak for both of us. It's not all productive. Like, a lot of it is just talking to each other and doing other things and living. I mean, I wish I was spending more time being a little bit more productive on stuff, but I don't want to sell myself short either, because I've been working a lot on writing scripts, and I mean like legitimately finally writing fully realized, fully formatted scripts for projects that I want to work on. Because when Gibson gets around to it, he can tell you what his general plans are, which he's not as set in stone as I am at the moment. But I know that I want to be a director, and just I've like I've said before, I love film, and by film I'm not just meaning like movies. I actually, as I've gotten older, I've grown to like I think we were just talking about this like yesterday, that like it's almost like we've starting to think that we like shows more than movies at this point.
Yeah.
But I know that this is a recent development, so it might seem superficial and maybe it's like, oh, maybe it'll be a phase, but I'm really confident because not only have I already had a lot of history with animation, with things like How to Train Your Dragon and Ice Age, which are things I've held up in high regard for a long time. I even love things like Monsters, Inc. and stuff. But when I first started watching anime back in 2017 when I watched Neon Genesis Evangelion, or properly watched anime. I technically watched Bakugan Battle Brawlers way back when I was really young.
Yes.
But,
Dude, I'm looking at the chest in the corner where I have all my fucking Bakugan in a pile inside.
I don't even know where the fuck mine are anymore, man. They're just gone. Those are some balls from the past, let me tell you.
Balls from the past.
The thing is, even though I like kind of technically got into anime in 2017, and like I kind of got out of it towards the end of 2018. Not that I like wanted to get out of it, but it's just like I was really busy actually with my YouTube channel. Like literally what we were talking about earlier. I think that was probably a huge reason for why I didn't watch more stuff, is because I was so focused on putting all of my goddamn time into really well, I don't want to say pointless shit, because it was actually, I really value the experiences I got off of YouTube. I don't regret anything. Yeah, and I'm glad that I overshot the projects on there, because it helped me realize that these big shows and stuff have like hundreds of people working on them, because you need hundreds of people working on them to do this at a good quality and at a reasonable manageable level for everyone's sanity and health and for time efficiency. And I'm not going to get into all the specifics of that right now, but basically, in summary, in 2020, actually, a game I won't talk about right now, we'll save for some other one, but called Doki Doki Literature Club. I experienced it in the end of May of last year, 2020, and it I love that game so much, and it had a anime-inspired art style, and it revitalized my interest in the genre. And so one of my friends had recommended an anime to me, and I watched that, and then we immediately watched another movie together, and that started the trend from, which was basically June of 2020 leading to now, which is June of 2021. I have been watching anime nonstop. Like I've been fully into it now. Full weeb conversion. I love anime, and I've really, I love animation in general, but anime was the real thing that opened me up to it. And it's not because of the art style, and it's not because of some other things like that or specific series. It's because of the culture. I honestly think that just Japan and the way that they do their what do you call it? Their media is a lot more mature than a lot of Western stuff. The Western stuff, like, while we can be known to be grotesque and like, oh, freedom of speech bullshit, we're kind of tame. If you really think about it, there's a lot of places where we're really soft, and we really value like things like, there's children's sections to stuff. Not to say that Japan doesn't have that, not to say that these are bad, but Japan has a not so fine line where, like, in the US, animation is kind of hard to convince people to be an adult subject. Like, it's usually just seen as a kid thing. Well, like, and
I see so many like memes and stuff about, and so many like stories as well, about how like people who really like anime will get told that it's for kids and stuff, and I'm like, that's a fucking American as shit thing to assume.
Yeah.
Oh boy, do I have news for you.
Like Gibson, you watched Bakugan Battle Brawlers as well, right? Back when that came out. But like his proper like real first introduction into anime where he actually finished it, because he watched One Punch Man briefly too, I believe, was Evangelion, just like me. And that show alone hard disproves that the animation is for kids.
It really does.
So
look at this fun show about kids fighting in robots. This is gonna be wholesome.
Where's all this yogurt coming from?
Where's all the yogurt coming from?
It's so I think that it was fascinating to me to see that there's a huge, like, as people know, like, anime I think is the single biggest media source in Japan. Like like games and movies and shows and stuff, like none of it like amounts to how huge of an industry anime is. And it's for good reason, because people really like it. And there's a lot of stuff there, and I'm not saying, like, that's one thing, like, every anime fan, I think that's a common misconception, is a lot of people, when they hear an anime fan, if they're not familiar with it, they're like, oh, you just like all that crap like Dragon Ball Z. I don't like Dragon Ball Z. Anime fan, if you're an anime fan, it doesn't mean you like all anime. It just means that you like that like, assortment of things, and you sift through that bucket for shit. Like, you're not looking in other buckets.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't mean you're like everything.
It's super broad. It's a massive, I was going to say genre, but it's not a genre. It's just a medium. So it's everything. And
it's technically not even a medium. I'm going to actually give a shout out to Mother's Basement, I believe is who did it. I'll link, if I remember, I'll link the video in the description. He does an amazing video breaking down what anime really is. And to summarize it, he does a much better job. Please watch his video. It's really great. I really love what he says in it, and I fully agree with his take. But he basically says that anime is a movement, more than anything, because you can't properly define it as a medium, and you can't properly define it as a bunch of other things. It's more of like a movement, because there's even like, you'll see live action movies and you see a moment, you're like, that's so anime, even though it's not animated at all, right? Like you there's just certain things, certain tropes, certain styles, certain ways of, like, especially like reducing budget constraints that anime have originally were really creative ways of reducing that strain from the budget. They ended up turning into visual flares that are literally used for style now. And that's so that's kind of like an example of like how it's turned into a movement, and it's a much broader thing than just like even a medium.
Yeah.
And so, but that anyways, I fell in love with that and the potential of it. But the real reason why I've decided that I want to be an animation director, and honestly, you could probably even call me a wannabe anime director, because, like we established, it's more of a movement than anything. I don't have to be in Japan to make anime. And that's because the level of control you have. I'm a super creative person. And I love just deep diving into shit, and we'll get into, like, when we talk about other things, like we have plans for an entire NGE episode and some other great things that we just love.
Yes.
I love when you can really dig deep into something and see all the mastery and the art in it. So animation is like the perfect outlet for someone with a super creative mind that is also a writer, or a story writer, because it, like, when you have live action, no matter how detailed you are, you can't control every pore on an actor's face. You can't control a lot of things. Are just like physical constraints. That's one thing a lot of people like to say, is like physical constraints. You can't do this and that, but you can achieve that with, CGI and stuff, and you can fill in the gaps and whatnot. I think these are all still legitimate reasons, but the big reason I want to sink in is not like any kind of physical constraints or anything like that, but it's literally just the amount of control that you have. And I'm gonna just list one example. One of my favorite shows of all time, Hyuga, and Gibson just recently, he at the beginning of this year started watching it, and we recently got back into watching it, so he's seen a little bit of it. He hasn't finished it, but it's a very grounded show. It has no like ridiculous shit going on. It has like really cool visual flares every once in a while, and by that I mean like literally like a magical like tangling of a girl's hair around a room or something, but it's literally just in the imagination of a boy.
There will be like random visual stuff, especially when they're like telling stories of something that's happened, where it looks like supernatural, but it's literally just visuals. It's just meant to look neat. It's not actually signaling what's happening literally.
everything in the story is completely grounded. Like, it could translate to live action superbly because of that fact. But
Yeah.
Not that I would want it to, because the reason I'm going to list right now is that even though everything's grounded, they don't have the crutch of like, oh, we can do anything we want, and so that story requires it. There's scenes in that show where they design just the infrastructure of the school. It doesn't look out of normal at all. It looks completely normal school infrastructure, but because they can literally design the school by hand, they would frame things and make the shapes and contours of a structure angle and manners to really evoke emotions and emphasize focus, and use all those fancy directorial tricks that screenwriters and that directors use in all kinds of productions, live action or animated, to emphasize the story and to tell it correctly. But this story, even though it's super grounded and has no reliance on any of those absurd things, because they're able to literally design every square inch of the space and the area and the characters, it is 100% exactly how you want it. And so just that infinite potential for designing it exactly how you want and not having to worry about anything, having to find locations or anything like that, that's what I find so appealing about it. And so that's
the
why
coolest thing to me as well is that you have that level of control with animation, and as well, even not that animation is easy to do, that's not what I'm saying, but in terms of the resources you need, whereas for live action, you need like to actually find like the building you're going to shoot at. If you need the craziest thing ever happening in a single frame of animation, doesn't matter what it is, you just need either the piece of paper or computer program, depending on what you're using. You just need
the imagination and the artist. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. No, it is wonderful because of that.
So yeah, to summarize what I'm trying to say is that basically I've decided that I want to be an animation director above all. I still have like a couple ideas for live action projects that I'd like to do, but yeah, that's pretty much that. But like, enough. I've been talking forever. Like, what is your like current thinkings on what you want to do with your life? What are you working on right now?
So, as for what I want to do with my life, I have no fucking clue. But I have things that I am doing right now that I do enjoy a lot. And certainly, I mean, I've always been the type of person with sort of a surplus of passions, shall we say, to the point where it's a little problematic because I have trouble focusing on just one thing for too long. I think that's another thing that kind of goes back to what I was talking about with content creation, where, like, there's points where even if I'm really enjoying something and there's no reason I should be getting burned out, just the sheer like factor of time and the way the creative part of my brain works, it'll just force me to at some point be like, this is miserable. We have to go become a basket weaver now. I've never done that, but that's, my brain is very ADD with creative stuff. Not in a clinical sense, just in a colloquial sense.
Oh no, he's not fucking insane.
Oh, I mean, well, I am a psychopathic mass murderer, but other than that, I'm pretty stable. But yeah, so I have plenty of stuff I've been working on. Main thing has been music, and this year I'm planning on pretty soon doing the first song for it, recording an album of songs that I've been writing for like 2 years now, which is exciting as hell. My music project, I'll link it in the description, or we'll link it in the description. Whoever does the description will put it in there, I'm sure.
We will do the description, Soviet Union theme. I don't remember how it goes.
Our description. Anyhow, I just memed myself out of my train of thought. But yeah, so I'm planning on recording an album. I've been working on it for ages. I have a YouTube and a SoundCloud where I post up like random demos and loops and crap that I put together, and nothing super official or super neat yet. But super fucking excited for that because I have grown up in a very musical environment. I've played the drums in my entire life and listened to music my entire life, and generally just, it's been a big thing that's defined me and been very much a central passion of mine. And it's always just been really important to me, to the point where, like, I remember when I was a kid and I first realized that some people like just listened to music occasionally passively, and that was their whole relationship with it. I was like, wait, everyone doesn't just sit down and listen to 4 Rush albums in a row when they're 10 years old? Oh, that's fucked up.
In fact, you even introduced me to actually listening to an album just in one go. Like, well, I technically listened to one album before. Well, the album format is
depressingly like out of date now.
Yes.
But it's not to me. Which is why I'm making one. But yeah, so that's a big thing. I was actually just working on a random like piano piece that I've been writing earlier today. A few nights ago, I just sat down and said, I'm not going to practice any of the stuff I've been playing. I'm just going to improv something new. And now I've been developing that every day for a little bit, and that's been fun. But I have other shit too. Much like you, I enjoy writing and I enjoy telling stories, so I have a number of novels going at once, which is funny to admit because it just sounds like I'm freely admitting the low likelihood of them being finished, but I actually don't think it's a low likelihood. I just like to start a lot of things at once because I gotta be able to bounce between things. But yeah, I've got like, my main thing is a big sci-fi space opera that I've been constructing for fucking ages, since like 2016 technically. And then I also have like a sci-fi horror kind of dystopia thing, which
that's a newer
sounds
thing, right?
really generic and sad, but it's actually very much. I'll even give the elevator pitch. The sun stops giving off light, and humanity has to survive without its warmth or its light and shit. There you go. That's unique, right?
That one's the older one. I was thinking of the other like horror.
Oh, the new one that's literally just an idea.
Yes.
There is one that's just an idea. I won't talk about that one yet because I can barely talk about it coherently when I'm not trying to spoil my own ideas. And then I did have like a high fantasy, like medieval fantasy thing going for a while, but I decided to just stop writing that story and literally just use it as like a world to map and world build. That's another thing, is I really like starting worlds just for world building's sake sometimes, even if I'm not going to write a story in them. And if I decide to write a story in them one day, then cool, it's there and the world is built. But I fucking love world building. And that's like something that's really like to me, like a big goal of mine with any art I do is to just immerse the person experiencing it in an immersive world, in an immersive atmosphere. I think that's something that like ties everything I do together, and just like, because along with making stuff, you know, like you said, it hasn't all been productivity over here by any means, but it has been productive in a sense, even when I've just been, you know, taking in art that other people have made, whether I'm listening to music or watching a show or playing a game or whatever. And that's fuel. I'm fueling myself to do things. Yes. And I think that's what ties together a lot of things I like, is that atmosphere and that sense of a rich, like, immersive experience. Because, like, when I make music, like, all my songs are mood pieces. There's no hook. There's not even really a genre. I'm just like, piano, go, melancholy, minor key chords. And then, you know, with my books, I place a lot of emphasis on world building and creating atmosphere. As well, another big thing that I've been doing is just keeping up on a bunch of pet projects in Minecraft, because I'm a manic Minecraft builder. It's actually a problem. And I enjoy building entire realistic medieval cities by hand, because I'm also
he's fucking good at it.
Sort of a medieval architecture buff, sort of. I love that shit. And yeah, anyhow, that's another example of where, like, atmosphere is really important, because I'll place a lot more emphasis than a lot of builders do on, like, small scale stuff, and just, you know, putting in a lot of, like, purposeful damage and staining on the buildings. I like art to feel immersive. I mean, it's on
your Instagram, right? You could link.
It is actually. We actually could.
People can look at that.
We actually could, if anyone cares. Spruce trapdoors are the fucking best. There we go. Minecraft message of the day. That's my building tip, is abuse the spruce trapdoor.
I feel like I need to note down all the shit that we want to put in the description, because we're going to forget about it. What was the first thing that I wanted to put? It was like, Mother's Basement
yes,
video about anime. What was the other one we wanted to do? Was there another one?
Besides, music. Spitfire Tree. That's the name of the music thing
Spitfire
that I do.
Tree. Okay.
If anyone knows, if anyone fucking gets the reference to what a Spitfire tree is, you had a great childhood.
And
That's
it's
all
not
I'm gonna
the
say.
OP gun from Titanfall.
No, it's not that Spitfire.
Or the
A
World War II
Spitfire the
plane.
size of a tree. Now that's just terrifying. It's just a Spitfire, but it's like the size of the Predator cannon. Anyhow, but yeah, so I got on a tangent about atmosphere and stuff, but more generally, yeah, I like building with blocks. I like writing books and telling stories, and making music is the main thing that it's hard for me to. Music is to a point where like it's hard for me to even say I like making music. It's more like a bodily function. Like, I don't really have to, like, the fact that I like it is irrelevant because I just do it, like, no matter what. So that's kind of why that's the main thing for me, because it just comes absurdly naturally. But
It does.
yeah,
come
so that's
everywhere.
That's what I've been. But yeah, that's basically been what I've been working on for the most part. Yeah, you went into a whole thing about like what you're gonna do for your career and stuff, and I'm just like, oh boy, I love
Putting
thinking
you on
about
the
that.
spot.
Not. Yeah, well, I've actually.
Slacker.
I am right in the middle of like the most chaotic, uncertain period of my life in terms of determining what the near future will bring. But at least I have, artistically fulfilling stuff going on, like music and writing and whatever else.
You always want to work on, even if it's not the main focus. So,
yeah. Right now, like I said, I'm a man with a surplus of things that he likes to do. So that's sort of what makes it difficult. It's not trying to find a passion, it's trying to narrow it down. Because every time I try to imagine committing to one thing, I'm sad that I have to let something else go. Because along with all the stuff I mentioned, I also have things that, I'm always doing that I've always done, like taking care of my animals because I keep reptiles and stuff. So there's always something that makes me feel like I can't fully commit to another thing. It's great. I'll figure it out one day. Hopefully
this actually
soon.
reminds me that like I want to mention the fact that Gibson and I are really great friends, and so we have a lot of common interests. Like even we have a friend group that consists of like 5. Like, well, there's other people that kind of like exist on like the outliers and stuff, and like one of them isn't really around anymore. But basically 5 like of us that are really active, and we're all really damn close. And it's a really great friend group. But like out of everybody, Gibson and I are probably the most similar in terms of like our creative interests and stuff. I mean, we're the most similar in a lot of other ways too, but like when it comes to creative and like media interests and stuff, I mean, like sometimes we're borderline there's obviously differences, but like sometimes we're like literally borderline clones of each other. There's a lot of overlap there, and this channel is hopefully just the first of like hopefully like a string of big projects that he and I can work on together. We've already talked about possibly him and I co-writing a show idea I have. We've talked about other things before. So I mean, I would really love to be able to work together with more stuff like that. But another thing, the shameless plug to an amazing YouTube channel you should definitely check out is Akpot Series. It's actually the channel of our friend group. You guys should definitely check that. I'm gonna note that to link it in the description. It's literally like the trash, like the shit post channel. Like it's basically all of our shit posts.
It's a garbage bin.
It's a garbage bin. Like if you expect if you like a video and you think it's hilarious, I'm glad, but it's probably not gonna happen again. Like it's just like you can't like it's so different.
True.
Like we have little mini series we started on there, and then they just died, and that's kind of part of the charm, to be honest. It's just like we don't really give a shit.
There's some series that have been going for a while though. Me and Eric have been doing documentary and 180-second hikes for ages.
But the moral of the story, go fucking watch it. It's great. It's hilarious.
I love I'm not even going to explain it for the viewers, but I'm tickled by mentioning 180-second hikes and just knowing that is an inside reference to an inside, like it's so fucking... so many layers of bullshit no one will get.
If you've ever wondered what my amazing musical voice would sound like with random objects in my bedroom, There's an amazing music video on that channel called Styrofoam Heart.
I've made music on there as well. Not serious music, but I've made joke music that took about 20 minutes per song that I've put up there.
His are much more catchy and very entertaining to listen to and funny. Mine's
Accidentally
more of a disaster piece, but
oh, I love a good disaster piece.
So
I hope Dominion is a disaster piece.
Yeah, that would be pretty fucking awesome. But I cannot stress it enough. Like, seriously, if you think, like, if you've even giggled at us once, you need to go, like, fucking watch that channel. That channel's hilarious.
Yes.
So, Joe,
to
go
us,
check it out.
You might go to it and then just, like, report that channel and this one, like, for just violating your human rights or something. I don't know.
And you know what? I'm not even going to fight you for it. I'm just going to eat pudding.
No, it's deserved.
And just maybe watch a moth fuck or something. I don't really care. But
like Monster Island buddies? Like it's fucking a lizard?
I didn't know. Yeah, maybe there's a gecko involved or something.
A gecko and a moth. It was a predator-prey relationship.
Oh,
now
shit.
It's a dom-sub relationship.
No, it's still a predator-prey relationship, if you know what I mean.
Oh, fuck.
You did not.
That gecko has...
You implied intent.
That I'm just assuming the gecko is the predatory one, but maybe it swaps. Maybe it swaps around.
Did you just assume my role in this rape case?
Yeah. That moth is a registered sex offender in like 17 states. If you see that thing, you gotta run for the fucking hills and hide your grandma.
Hey, listen, I'm not trying to advocate for people being mean and killing moths, but all I'm saying is, you don't know. You never know what's going on behind those antennae.
That moth might be a sex offender.
Yeah, but still don't kill him, because if you kill, there's only like 1 in 500 moths that's a registered sex offender, and if you kill any of the other ones, the leprechaun will probably come and steal your trash can.
You ever see those memes? I think I've sent you one where it'll be like an animal fact quote, and it'll be like, I don't know, as a random example, most seahorses cannot play the cello, or something like that. And this just sounds like exactly out of one of those memes. Most moths are not sex offenders. Most.
Or one of my favorite animal facts, the barnacle has the largest penis of any known animal, and
proportionally, this is true.
To stop being called the barnacle.
Oh, yes. That is a good animal fact.
It's getting fucking hot in here. I'm gonna quickly grab my waifu shirt because it's more breathy than this one.
Oh my god, yes. Frickin' I don't know what word I'm looking for. Put on the waifu shirt. I was looking for a fancier word to describe put on, but it just doesn't exist.
It's freaking hot. The summer's happening. We're both in the attic, basically, of our fucking house. And,
we are! Another thing we
horrible.
have in common. We live in the attic.
We're attic
Some
dwellers.
people come out of the closet. We stay in the attic.
we peek out of the attic.
Occasionally, for food.
Yeah, for food. We do food harvests. But, I mean, I wish I could show you guys the shirt. Maybe you guys will get to see it in some capacity at some point. But it's my waifu, Mai Sakurajima from Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai. I shouldn't just say Rascal. I keep getting in the habit of saying Rascal and knowing that, or just hoping.
No one will know what that is.
But they might not know who that is. It's my second favorite anime. It's a really nice shirt. Anyways, that's not important because you guys can't fucking see it. So it doesn't matter.
Should we put a link in the description to a PNG of the waifu shirt?
Well, if this gets clipped or highlighted, then we can put up a picture of me in the waifu shirt.
Ah, yes.
If not, then you're shit out of luck. Sorry, you don't get to see the waifu shirt.
So sad, so sad. But yeah, to circle round back 1,000 years into what I was talking about. I'd say the main thing that's working on now, like, regardless of what I do for money that I need to live, unfortunately,
sucks.
I can say with confidence that I'm going to be recording my album hopefully later this year. I don't know if the entire album will be recorded, but I know I'm going to try to get as many songs as I can get done pretty much this summer and fall. And I'm excited as hell about that. Like I said, I've been writing this album for like, I was saying 2 years, but that depressingly might be, well, not necessarily depressingly, just interestingly enough, might be an undershot now that I'm thinking about it. But yeah, it's gone through a bazillion alterations and things. Like I say, it's kind of genreless. It's just like atmospheric, random mix of instruments I like, singing about whatever the heck topic I feel like. And I wish I could label it with a specific genre or like compare it to something, but I really don't have anything to compare it to, which on the one hand, it could be something fun to brag about, but on the other hand, makes it very difficult to market. But I am excited about it nonetheless, because the main goal is just making it.
It honestly, I mean, I'm not as adept or adept, I don't know if that's the correct term, but like, I'm not as experienced with all the different like ins and outs of like, music and the industry and all the different genres and shit like you are. But I've been cultured by this man ever since like September.
Yes.
He's introduced me to a bunch of stuff, and my musical taste has grown a bunch since then too. From the stuff I've been paying more attention to, I'd say that you remind me most of like Radiohead out of all the bigger ones, because like you have this like very like there's a very artsy vibe to you. Now you're not like necessarily exactly like Radiohead, but it's like the way that it seems like the way that you want to go about making music is kind of similar.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're a huge ass motherfucking influence, so there is that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I have a bunch of influences that all come from a bunch of weird different places. Radiohead and Talk Talk are probably the two like really big bands that most closely like were most directly influenced like literally the style of music I go for. And if I had to put myself in some kind of genre, it would probably have to be art rock, which is what Radiohead is usually described as, and Talk Talk is usually described as art rock or post rock, so I guess that works.
Art rock totally makes sense, though. That name works.
It does. Like, I'm tentative to say rock, though, because there's not a lot of guitar, and that's generally essential. But, well, I mean, not yet. But I am going to let my dad, who plays guitar, loose on it to do whatever weird atmospheric swells or Ebo shit he wants to do. I don't know.
You just do whatever you want on my song.
Well, for real, because I'm not a string instrument man at all. Like, so I pretty much just have to let other people's judgment work for that if I'm gonna have someone else play on something that I wrote. So
he's used to banging drums and clapping ass.
Oh, and slapping the piano.
Slapping the keys, yeah.
Slapping the keys.
So is that like all you wanted to talk about in terms of like what you're doing right now?
I think so. I think that's pretty much everything I'm doing right now. Besides, I mean, I could dive into, the things I've been listening to, watching, playing, or whatever, but I think we'll dive into a lot of that individually in future episodes, so yeah. I think I'll just leave it at where I've left it.
I mean, shit, I felt like there was some kind of segue that I was gonna drop off of that.
You had the most brilliant segue, and now it's just dead.
There was something you were talking about, and I was like, oh, that, we probably could talk about that more, but whatever. I remember what it was. It was that, not name drop anything. I've actually read one of your books, or at least how much you've written of it so far. I mean, I can't say anything too specific, but like, it's super atmospheric and super well written, and the world building and it's oozing. I love it. Like, this guy's going places with his writing.
I give you a massive order of McThanky nuggets.
I am not in the mood for chicken, so I hope that they're made out of ass.
That's I was just gonna say they ain't chicken, brother.
Okay, good.
I don't know what they are, but I know they're not chicken.
Okay, you know what? I'll let it be one of the surprises. It's a nuggy 5-layered nuggy bowl surprise.
Yes.
Brilliant.
But
something that we both have experienced recently that I know both has been inspirational to both of us in varying capacity is Attack on Titan. We both watched that.
Oh my God,
recently.
yes. That,
And
dude, watching that show, I don't think I've even talked to you about this necessarily, but the period of time I've spent watching that with you recently is like mildly a fever dream for me. Because it was about like exactly a month or so binging through the whole thing.
Yeah.
Where I like barely stayed up on like taking care of myself, taking care of like basic chores around the house. Where like I was in a fog of like utter just I was living in that show. And
Yeah.
I needed to get out of it because obviously it was also marginally contributing to a massive motivational slump. But my God, yeah, that is an amazing show. We'll have to talk about it like in its own dedicated segment and or episode in the future.
For sure.
But suffice to say, it's hype as fuck, and it just grabbed me by the balls and threw me into a brick wall, and I liked it.
Yeah, the big thing it's doing for me right now, I mean, obviously, like, I should probably say that neither one of us had watched it before this year. I watched it, like a week or two before I showed Gibson, and Gibson and I started it. Oh shit, did we end it this month? We ended it this month. We started it, like, pretty early on in May, and we ended it early June.
Yep.
And I had already seen the whole thing with my siblings. My siblings and I all get together and we have like big anime nights and almost every night. We've been a little bit more slacking on it lately, but Gibson and after I saw it, I was like, Gibson needs to see this because he and I already were well established in terms of like what we like and stuff. And also Gibson's a huge not Attack on Titan, Game of Thrones fan and Song of Ice and Fire fan.
Yes.
And while I have never seen Game of Thrones, I'm very familiar with it. My family's seen it. They have a lot in common.
They do. In terms of how they world build and how they, like, handle an ensemble cast and just a lot of their, like... A lot of the decisions they make in the story and stuff feel very Ice and Fire-esque.
Yeah, and, like, the reason I wanted to bring up Attack on Titan, because I know we want to talk about it, like, on its own at some point, but the reason I think it's important now is... I don't know how much it has affected you in this capacity, but for me, like I feel like I was already constructing myself as a writer for a long time, but I want to say that by the time that I really like decided I'm going to sit down and finally just write out these stories, it was, you know, early 2020, and I was getting into that, and I've been doing it ever since. I was kind of finally finalized as a writer, if that makes sense. Like, not to say, like, because nobody's, like, gonna stay the same forever, but, like, I finally understood who I was, my vision, and basically how I want to tell stories, right? And I had it was very well structured. I had a good idea. It was very finite. And that was definitely, like, you know, expanding and whatnot, but Attack on Titan kind of felt like a wrench that was, like, thrown in. Like, it was a curveball for me because, like, I told you, and I there was one night where I was talking to Gibson about it where it basically made me rethink whether or not I wanted to actually write things a little differently because the how effective this show was, and, like, how hype it is, it and the fact, like, bigger things like on the ensemble cast and a lot of the, like, different, like, characterization choices it makes compared to, like, I tend to like and write stories that are a lot more centralized on, like, a core, like, character arc or a character spine.
And that's good.
It is good.
Particularly, like, when you have minimal experience, it's a good place to start.
It is. And, I mean, it's kind of funny saying that now because now I'm thinking about it. A show I did on my other successful channel was very much not.
Oh, you had a load of characters.
Yeah, it was very much an ensemble, but the that's kind of the exception. So this show kind of threw a wrench in that for me, and it's ever since I've been, like, registering. I'm like, yeah, I've made me rethink it, but I definitely like this style more, and it's not necessarily changing who I am as a writer, but it felt like a good wake-up call where I'm like, hey, I could still sit here and, like, rethink about how maybe I'd want to approach certain things. And honestly, I do feel like it's influencing and inspiring some changes to some of my work. So I honestly feel like it's been the most relevant piece of media that I've experienced in possibly, well, not the whole last year, but close to the whole last year that
yeah,
I've been consuming media. I don't know how that's been for you, but
it was kind of a surreal experience watching some of the show because it brought back serious memories for me of watching like Game of Thrones or like the first couple seasons of Walking Dead before it got really, really bad. And also like Breaking Bad and stuff like that. Those shows that all came out like around 2010-ish when everyone was saying this is the golden era of television. And I remember watching a lot of those really big like action drama shows, and just I remember being almost intoxicating how wrapped up in it I would get and how invested you would get, how like the literal physical responses you would have to certain like moments of tension or tragedy or information being revealed or whatever. And it's the type of stuff where, I mean, some of those shows, like Walking Dead, are not even that good in my opinion anymore. Some of them, like Breaking Bad, are amazing. Game of Thrones is half and half. It's covering all the bases. You can praise it and laugh at it. It's beautiful. But yeah, and it'd been forever since I'd watched a show that made me feel that way, that like physically affected me to this level. I mean, well, when we watched NGE, that had its own effects too, but it was such a different kind of show. It was doing those things for completely different reasons. This show just reminded me of how effective just an awesome action show can fucking be when you've got the mystery and the intrigue and the big epic action sequences and the stunning visuals, and it's just this big spectacle, you know, fantasy. I just smacked the shit out of my mic. Fantasy thing. And there we go. It's dead now. But yeah, and how just that type of experience can be done at such a high caliber. Because there were moments where like characters died or looked like they were gonna die, or big info was revealed, or just a single action sequence was just so pretty to watch, and I was just like, oh, this fucking show. And that's kind of the only way I can describe it. It's just, oh, this fucking show.
And not to sell it short, because Attack on Titan is very subversive in its own, like, right, very much so. But
oh yes,
like the main difference between it and NGE is that like NGE was more like not intentionally trying to push the status quo. I mean, maybe to an extent, but like it wasn't like with a goal where it's like, oh, we're gonna be super different just to be different. It had a very different approach to its storytelling and to what it was doing. Attack on Titan feels like it's a really unique show. All those like basic elements that you love and that you work, that just the base things of make a story work, and they're just dialing it up to fucking 11. Like it feels like it's just max cinema. It feels like just this really well done like sci-fi fantasy epic kind of thing that's just done to it reminds me a little of in that way of like the first 4 seasons of Game of Thrones, or as well like the Lord of the Rings Peter Jackson movies, where it's like these stories have a lot of classic elements and some tropes of versions for sure. But just there's so much like care put into it, and it just, like you say, it just feels like it's dialed up to 11. It has such a rich, inspired feel to it, and it just wraps you up. And it's not just like well, I'm actually not going to name drop a movie because I don't want to talk about it, and I think you know what I'm thinking about. But it's not just like pure enjoyment either. It's got like themes and messages to it too. No, it's like a very competent show. It genuinely shocked me because it was one of those. The one thing I'll say about it now, without getting too much further and just talking about the show and gushing over it, is that it was definitely one of those shows that was so popular and so widely praised that I was definitely going in with tainted glasses, like kind of expecting and almost wanting to not like it, just because I was like, there's no way it's gonna live up to all this hype. And it totally fucking did. But it was a real eye opener for me. That's for sure.
I'm just like, yeah, I had a few days where I kind of stopped thinking about it. It's still so recent, and now it's just back in my head, and I'm like, fuck.
We still both
I want that
we're
Ervin Nendroid. God
we're
damn
actually
it.
talking through Discord right now, and we both have
Oh my
Attack
god,
on
we
Titan
do. We both
characters
have
as our
Attack on Titan profile pictures. It's amazing.
Here's a decent segue actually, is that kind of we were briefly talking about NGE, but that kind of reminds me that like Blade Runner was another thing that I had experienced last year, and with the help of like revitalizing, NGE and watching Blade Runner for the first time, I've realized that like tech noir has become like one of my favorite genres, just period. And it was never one that I really like thought, especially by name. It was not one that I expressed a bunch of interest in, but like it's possibly my favorite genre. Like it's weird because I don't have a ton of things in it that I really,
Yeah, like it's funny because if you ask me like list a bunch of cyberpunk / tech noir stuff that you like, I'd be like Blade Runner, Blade Runner. There's another Blade Runner with numbers in its name.
I mean, NG is tech noir.
I suppose so. It has some of that aesthetic and vibe to it.
I mean, it's not like I feel like a lot of times, and like for good reason, when you hear the word tech noir, you think pretty much strictly like Blade Runner vibes. That's this futuristic down
super over the top like cyberpunk Sherlock Holmes.
Now, like tech noir, like on a broader sense though, is more like it's like the classic noir, like everything's predetermined and destined kind of thing. It's got like a very like final, like fate orientated like feel to it. But it's very technologically like centered, and even most of the time set in the future. And so I think NG certainly falls within.
Yeah, no, I see it.
Yeah, so I just really, I think it's probably the potential of just like the storytelling you can do in that space, which is really what makes it so interesting to me.
And actually I'm stupid because I forgot that they're like, okay, so The Expanse is a series of books that I really, really love, and I could probably talk more about them in the future at some point, but they do a lot of genre play where like the second book is a political thriller, and then the third one is a horror, and the fourth one is a western. It's a space opera, though. The first one is a noir, like pretty straightforward, or at least half of it is. But anyhow,
I mean, it's weird too because like I mean, not just saying like noir is tied to that concept of like predestined fate, like but it doesn't, like most of the time I don't feel like it comes across like that it's like really heavily relying on the themes of fate and like, oh, everything's like
what I usually think about it is less really like themes of like fate and stuff, and more so just really well crafted mystery based stuff where you can tell that like there's sort of a predetermined order and like all the pieces have been put together really carefully.
That's a good way of putting it. Like you can tell that it's meticulously crafted. Like this is everything just feels really fleshed out and thought out. Yeah, I guess that's a good vibe for it. When I looked up the definition of noir, I think it more vaguely just kind of described it as like, oh yeah, it's like destined, predestined, fate and stuff like that. And yeah, so I guess a lot of those things don't actually, well, with the exception of NGE, don't really actually have like a hard, core like destiny / fate part to it, which is, but I think that like that's.
But they have the mystery-based, meticulous, like detail orientation that you want from a noir or any kind of mystery story.
Yeah, and the reason why initially I found it kind of interesting that I really have gotten into tech noir is because I was kind of overly like curious about that terminology of fate and predestined and stuff like that, is because it's something that I very much like don't have a strong connection to personally, like in the real world. Like I think it's kind of more, I mean, everybody has their own personal beliefs obviously, but like I'm more of like there's no fate, like we're not predestined to do anything. It's just we're all on a rock floating, just doing our thing.
Just floating.
Yeah, just doing our thing, being monkeys, silly monkeys, building clubs and beating our brothers down. But totally.
We do that.
Not
but
on the
it's
nose
usually
to
with
reference.
drones now, though.
Yes. the clubs have grown wings and rockets.
And they've gotten a little more advanced.
Just
a little more
bit.
efficient.
Not a ton. I think there was something else I was going to add about what we were talking about earlier, but I don't remember what it was.
It was a brilliant thought, but you're never going to... Well, you're going to think of it at, 4 in the morning. You're going to be like, that was it! That would have been the perfect segue into the final
absolutely.
section.
That happens every goddamn time. Like, even when we're just having, a normal conversation and we're not being recorded, it's more annoying now that we're recording, because now when I don't remember, I'm going to be like, oh, shit. I mean, at least I can, write it down, and I guess I could say, oh, yeah, I can squeeze that into the diarrhea episode or something. I don't know. It's...
Is that episode? I can't think of a funny number that goes with diarrhea. Episode 2. That should be episode 2.
You're right. The diarrhea episode. We're not hard connected to that, by the way. Actually, that's not a bad segue. Actually, because one thing that we're we don't have a schedule to release by. We don't have release dates or something like that for all the videos. We're gonna try to upkeep. And do a bunch of stuff, but don't expect a hard schedule or anything from this channel.
Yeah, no.
And also don't expect too specific. If we say oh yeah, we want to do an episode about this, we don't we've intentionally not planned episodes for certain numbers or anything like that. We will have certain ones, for certain events, or maybe we'll plan out something more carefully eventually, but most of the time it's going to be very spontaneous. Hey, you want to talk about this?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, let's do that.
And that's a big attraction of this thing. To loop all the way back around, perfect circle to kind of where we started tonight. I to me, unless it's going to be a job, which for me, it has never been at that level, so I can't really relate to that. Content creation, whether it's podcasting or being a YouTuber or whatever it might be, should be fun, and it should be something you do when you want to do it. It shouldn't become obligatory unless it's literally your source of income. And that's the big mistake I've always made, is overcommitting and being overly ambitious, creating obligation where it doesn't need to be there. And so I'm excited to purposefully place an emphasis on this podcast regarding improvisation and lack of commitment and just doing whatever we want. I think that should be the point of it.
I hope that you guys just enjoy our stay. But the thing, I think it's actually kind of funny, because there's this, I don't know, I guess a saying that, you shouldn't turn your hobbies into a job, because then they become work and they're no longer fun anymore. And that's
the trick to that is that you have to work no matter what, so it may as well be fun.
That clearly you and I have decided against that advice.
Yeah, no, I think that's bullshit.
I agree. I think that while I completely sympathize and I understand the value of what they're trying to say, and I even don't strongly disagree, it's more that I've decided for me, I'm just gonna have to find that balance, because I don't and especially when I'm also the kind of person where I went through a period where I was heavily considering even just being a YouTuber with my past channel and just living off of that, because I was really enjoying it at the time for a brief period, which kind of burnt out. But I was you know what? Am I willing to give up all these stories that I have ideas for, and then just doing YouTube all the time and just leaving these other things as tiny projects? And that's where my big problem is, because I'm such a creative person, and I'm so ambitious with my stuff that it would hurt and be really probably unhealthy mentally if I had to bottle up all this stuff and never have an outlet for it. And so I think it's actually important that I literally live by that. Not that I'm trying to justify, because I don't really care if somebody's going to tell me not to do it. I'm going to do it anyways. But it's kind of just an interesting perspective, and I know it's something that a lot of people think about. And I mean, it's not. I'm not trying to turn it into just a generic like follow your dreams pitch here, but not to say that I disagree with that, because I think it's actually you should. But I think it's an interesting thing to think about. And honestly, I think that for some people, keeping it as a hobby and just doing some normal job on the side is pretty good too. Like I was last year I was working at an animal hospital, something I never thought about doing before, but I was working in an animal hospital, like boarding dogs and stuff and doing doggy daycare, and I loved the hell out of that. Like I really loved it. It was work. It was definitely work, and it got to me sometimes. It was tough, but I really enjoyed that, and I liked having, even though I was overworking myself because I was doing the YouTube stuff at the same time, I did like the appeal of balancing the hobby separately. But I know that that's not going to work for me in the long term. But I could see how that would work for some people.
Because I'm coming from a similar perspective, I think. Because in the short term, the idea of just having, like, some variant of Joe job and doing my hobbies on the side is kind of attractive in a way, because that way they don't become work. And again, like, I get the urge to think that way of like, don't turn your hobbies into work. And you know what? Maybe, depending on what they are, don't turn them into work, because I have overcommitted to certain hobbies in the past. Might have been different if they were literally a job and I was literally making a living from them. That's a very important factor to consider. But even regardless of that, it's all about just finding the right thing. Because while turning, I don't know, building in Minecraft into a job might be a really terrible idea or something. I don't know. Just as an example, like thinking of things that I like to do that are more just minor pet projects and things. Turning music into a career would be amazing. And that's probably what I'm going to shoot for primarily. So maybe don't turn your smaller side hobbies into jobs. Maybe that's, I mean, you could try it. Maybe it won't work out. But if you have like a central passion where like it's just your favorite thing to do, like I said, for me, like music is just second nature. Saying I like to do it is like a stupid, weird way of describing it. It's more that I do it. If you have something like that, like you gotta go for that shit, man. Cause that's where the happiness is. That's where it lives.
Oh my god, my thought. What the fuck?
Your brain is just like, it's having a time.
Yeah, the bitch, that thought walking around in my brain just decided to fucking keel over and die. I don't. It's just, what were we just talking about just before?
We were talking about balancing work and hobbies, turning hobbies and or passions into work, stuff.
Oh, I remember. Thank you. Now, this is I'm gonna contradict myself immediately here, because I was just saying how we don't really have plans for episode numbers, but a pretty good likelihood for episode 2 might be just literally dinosaur figures and like collecting that stuff.
Oh my god.
We do want to talk about that, and it's pretty easy like segue, especially since probably a lot of our first viewers on the channel are going to be from that community anyways, so it's probably going to be fairly relatable. So that might be what the next episode is. At least it's probably going to be fairly soon. That is a perfect example of what was a hobby for both of us, and where not only do I see it happening to other people, and I can easily see it happening to a lot of people, but it happened to both of us to some extent, where we, like, I think we both stopped it before it was too bad and too unhealthy, but like a hobby of collecting figurines, like especially if fueled by turning it into a pseudo job through YouTube, by like monetizing that and by like publicizing it and influencing to get more and to get certain things you maybe wouldn't get normally because of the fact you want to make videos on them and stuff, that fueled it and started exponentially growing to a point like where it was not really as good for us anymore, and like it wasn't as fun. And so that's kind of a decent example of how that hobby can turn into that.
I mean, for me, like, I felt like I was turning myself from a person who likes to collect plastic things and who just buys the plastic things that they want and puts them on a shelf to someone who was like a official opinion piece maker for the plastic things. I was basically primarily a review channel for the longest time, and like you say, you start buying stuff that you wouldn't even buy normally because you're like, this will be good content. And then after a while, you're like, I mean, this is fun to an extent, but it's kind of ruined the hobby aspect because it's no longer curating a collection or collecting things. It's just buying things for content is sort of what it is. Not really the most ideal transformation.
No. But I remembered the thing I wanted to talk about forever ago. Finally. And so I don't remember how long ago it was that we were talking about this, but you were mentioning how, like, you have a bunch of writing ideas, like books and stuff you've been working on, and, like,
yes,
you're working on it all at the same time, but, like, even with that, like, you still don't think it's unreasonable to say that they're all going to be finished. So, it's actually kind of, I have, like, almost like a flip, like, experience with that. Not that, like, I'm not thinking they're all going to be made, but I have had that same experience through my life where I keep getting new ideas, and, like, especially with YouTube, I keep getting new ideas, and I'm just, like, piling shit on top of shit, and it's just overlaying, and then, like, I can't do any of it by the end, you know? But with my writing, I have I've fine-tuned the projects I'm really interested in. As I've started writing them, I now have, like, a finite number of shows in my head right now that I know, or in / movies, or projects that I know I want to make. And maybe, like, one or two, like, maybes, right? That I'm like, oh, maybe I'll do this. But what I've discovered is I put so much into these things, and they're so well thought out. I've actually found the inverse problem from before. And I find it interesting because I was sitting there thinking about it, and I was like, I like to be hypothetical. I like to imagine I'm, like we were talking about, we're thinkers, we're creative people, we're ambitious. And I was thinking, like, hypothetically, if this works out and I become an animation director and I'm making these series, I'm going to, you know, let's say I do these in this order, right? Like, I just have a hypothetical order that I do the stories. What do I do after that? And that's where I started realizing where, like, there was holes, and there were parts where I'm like, am I going to run out of ideas? Like, because I'm so, like, convinced that these are what I want to do, like, is there going to be a point where, like, because I do still get ideas, right? But a lot of those ideas I end up readapting and just, like, somehow morphing into the stories I'm already writing. And a bunch of ideas even just end up dying. Like, I just cut them off now because I'm like, okay, that's a cool idea, but that's something I just talk about or be hypothetical with. That's not something I'd actually want to invest, like, a year of my life into producing. If you know what I mean. And, like, also my standards, you and I both have, like, similar standards for quality, and there's just certain things where I'm like, this is just too shallow or just too lacking in inspiration for me to really want to do this. And so I found the inverse problem, weirdly enough, where I'm actually, like, I feel like I'm starting to narrow how many projects I'm going to work on, and I'm not, like, legitimately concerned, but, like, kind of hypothetically concerned, like, is there going to be a point where I'm like, I don't know what to do anymore? And, like, that's honestly, it's a pretty happy thought, though. Like, if I think about it, like, if I actually got to the point where I made everything and I'm happy with it all, like, that's pretty dope. Like, if I actually could, like, I could pretty much die happy if I produced all those projects. But, I mean, I'd still like to do more, right? And
yeah,
maybe I'll do a career change or something, but it's kind of an interesting thought.
There have been times where I have... Because, like, when I first started Spitfire Tree, and I first started, like, just making demos and experimenting with writing my own music, I mean, there was an explosion of shit that I haven't even posted, like, half of it. I mean, there's just, like, 5 or 6 albums worth of just crap. And some of it's good crap. But it's all crap, just the same.
Crap.
But, you know, that was a huge surge of inspiration, right? And there was a point where I was like, am I just going to keep, like, drawing from this pool of stuff? Because I haven't quite had that same surge of writing since I first started doing that. That was a ridiculous creative brain moment where I was just going off. And the thing is for me, like, my whole life has been just swells of that. Whether it's as a child just working on something simple and creative, or me now doing bigger artistic projects, like, you go through different periods. There will be periods where you slump and you just feel like you don't want to work on anything. And there are periods where you will be just manically like obsessed with either one thing in particular, or you're starting a bunch of new things. And like, bottom line, all those stories and things that you're writing, all those things you want to make, like, could you have imagined any of them 5 years ago or however long ago you hadn't even thought of the oldest one?
That's
like,
a good point.
5 years from now, you will have come up with ideas that you have not conceived of, that you cannot conceive of yet. And I think the key is just to have faith in that, because like, I know the way my brain works, and I know that no matter how creatively like burnt out I might be or whatever, like I have no doubt that eventually I'm going to be manically obsessed with doing something. So yeah, I don't know. That's where I'm at.
I guess I definitely and it's really good that you, like, you're hammering that point in, because it's a really good thing to keep in mind. And I think that I definitely thought of that myself. Like, I'm not like just sitting here thinking like that it's over. But I think the reason why I'm finding it a little bit more tangible this time around, because I've had the same experience, like where the swells are happening, is that I've noticed just from, like I said, like my standards of quality and just like the fact that like whenever I was coming up with an idea that was similar to another idea, I really didn't like that, because I don't want to be one of those directors that like keeps retreading ground. You know what I mean? Like, there's some directors that like just keep doing basically the same movie over and over again. It's got a different skin. And there's oh shit, it's not, I forget his name. I'm gonna butcher his name, but the director of Your Name, it's an anime actually Gibson hasn't seen yet. He's also made Weathering with You, Garden of Words, a bunch of other things. He's a really well-known director, and he's made a bunch of movies with a very striking visual style. They all look very similar because they look super hyper realistic and super like beautiful. It's almost like paint like, but it also looks real at the same time. It's really, he's got an awesome style. But more recently, and he's been pretty good about like doing different things for his movies, but more recently it's starting to feel like he's falling into a rhythm, because like his newest movie, Weathering with You, while I was really excited for it because I loved Your Name, I ended up realizing like I still really liked it, but it ended up being like Your Name 2.0. You know what I mean? Like, it was just the same movie, just kind of different. And it did some things better, but it did some things worse than the first one. And I think overall it ended up being not as good as the first one. But then again, I also think that partially is due to the fact that the first one already exists. But I still, I think if you remove that, it's still not as good. And so there's a big part of me where I'm like, I think that just by the incident of me making things, certain projects will start to just be harder for me to convince myself to do because they're too similar to something I've already done, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why, like, it'll be almost like not exponential growth, but exponential narrowing or bottlenecking into, like, not that I only am going to do certain, like, one thing, but, like, I feel like I'll, like, almost have explored a bunch of different things. And not to say that I won't like do certain things that are very similar to things that, as long as it's like a little bit changed, but I just think it's going to start to be hard. I'm just that's what I'm curious about. I'm wondering if it's going to start to be harder for me to get new ideas that I really want to invest in that much, because they might be too similar to something I'm already doing, if that makes sense. I mean, obviously, you know, the world is the limit. The universe is the limit. So I think you're probably more right than my, you know, hypothetical curiosity right now. I'll probably end up coming up with a bunch more ideas. But the reason why I've been considering it so much is just that idea is like, am I going to end up like just really being so hard on myself to do something different that I end up like kind of not doing a bunch of things? If that makes sense.
I think I'm gonna bring it back to the super simple, to the point of almost sounding dumb. The key is just doing whatever you want. Yeah. And what I mean by that is, even if you are making something and you know that it's super similar to something you've done, or you know that there are inherent flaws with it, or like, you know, you're not creating something that's necessarily better than what you've done before, sometimes it's better to just make it if you're motivated, just to have used the motivation and just to have another thing under your belt. I feel like that's something where, like, because I have so much trouble following through with art. Like, I start so many projects and don't finish them, and a lot of that has to do not just with natural burnout and swells of motivation, but a lot of it has to do with me second guessing it and being a perfectionist to the point where I'm like, if this isn't the embodiment of what I want to do with this medium, then I should just stop. And that's a bad attitude to have, because you'll never get anything done. So while it's good to strive to be better and be different and stuff and evolve, like, I do think sometimes just saying, you know what, I'm motivated to work on this thing. It might seem quaint compared to what I've done in the past or whatever, or this might be a random kind of pointless little side project, but this is what I want to work on, so I'm just going to use up this motivation here because that just feels like it's got to happen. I think that's okay sometimes.
I agree. And I mean, in case I haven't made it clear enough to anybody listening, like, this is like, I like to think hypothetically a lot. So this is more just like me brainstorming.
You're living in a distant and very hypothetical future.
Yeah, and it's more me being curious than anything. I'm not literally sitting here saying, and I don't think this is something you should legitimately, like, worry about. It's not something I'm legitimately worrying about. It's just like, I'm not sitting here saying, oh God, I'm going to run out of ideas. I'm going to be broke as a director.
It's an interesting prospect, though, for a creative mind. It is.
It is. That's kind of what this whole show's about, in a way. No, it's not. It's not about just, like, there's going to be, like, that's part of it, but, like, it's about us just talking, really. About
that is what it's about. It's great. Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to when we get to do the more gamey episodes. Like, we have, I'm not going to spoil what we have in mind, but we have some episodes that are going to be very fun, and a lot of things that will have viewer interaction.
Yes,
things from, like, your input and whatnot.
For our 3 viewers that I have confidence we will get within the first, like, day, but that's it. We're gonna get 3 instantly, but they're gonna be the most dedicated fans. We're gonna have a meetup, and then they're just gonna join the podcast. It's gonna be a 5-person podcast because they're so great.
They're so great.
I don't know why I'm going down this road in so much detail.
There's gonna end up being like 10 of them, and they're all just gonna fucking fight each other because they're like, I'm one of the 3. No, I'm one of the 3. I'm one of the 3. And we're like, oh shit, we gotta, like, kill all 10 of them and just, like, start over again.
We gotta get rid of all of them and just start blank.
Delete the podcast or edit out that sentence and just, like, okay, mistake noted.
Mistake noted. Attempt 2 beginning now.
I am just so. I know that this is like. I'm for one thing. This is our first podcast episode, but I'm really happy as to how little we've had to dwell on, like, getting it started up, and we're just, like, talking about it, because I think it's going great so far. But I'm just so excited about the potential of this. And I'm hoping that, like, people really enjoy it too.
I think for me, like, the podcast format, whether I'm making it or listening to it, is somehow kind of inherently relaxing and inherently just, well, it feels more authentic than other stuff. I was talking earlier about, like, manufactured authenticity and, like, kind of the personas that a lot of content creators put up and stuff. And I think that's something great about this format is that, well, there's different levels to it, right? Because in, like, a video, you can be as polished and as fake as you desire. And in, like, a live stream, you can only do that to a point because you can't edit shit. In here, we're somewhere in between because we can edit this, but we're still trying to keep it with a fairly loose, like, generally one take-ish podcast kind of vibe to it. Yeah. So I like that, though. I like that it forces you to be an idiot and make mistakes sometimes in the sense of, like, you know, losing your train of thought or messing up a sentence or whatever, and you don't have to be, like, super polished. And like you were saying, I did the same thing you did back in, like, some of my other channels and stuff when I would edit videos where, like, I'd literally be editing out like, well, I would have edited out that because I just fucked up a word. I would have gotten rid of that and, like, redone it, but it doesn't matter. No one cares. And
or I have the habit of saying or filling in my sentences with the word or And
Yeah.
I'd cut all those out in my videos.
I would. There was a point where I was like, the peak of YouTube professionality is to tell them to slap the like button at least 17 times per second and to cut out every single pause, or but. All of it gone. As many jump cuts as possible. But yeah, no, like, that's an exaggeration, obviously, but, yeah,
Sometimes
I had
it
a
felt
really...
like that, though.
Sometimes it felt like that. And, I really think, you know, the bottom line for me that's finally, like, given me the confidence and the wherewithal to just say, fuck that, is the fact that not only is this much more fun, this is also, like I said, this is the content I prefer to watch. My favorite content creators are, like, streamers or YouTubers who have, like, similar styles to streamers, or people who are just more casual, more authentic, more, like, quirky and stuff. And, I mean, there are some people I watch who put together things with literal characters and whole, like, set piece thing, but that's a whole different thing. I don't watch anyone anymore with a YouTuber-y persona. I don't watch a lot of big channels. Like, when I look at, I mean, like, probably the average sub count for channels I watch is like 100,000 subscribers, but there are very few, like, million subscriber people. Like, the only huge channel I can think of that I really like is Vsauce. And that's a great example of, like, that's a huge, iconic YouTube channel, and I'm sure he occasionally tells you to hit subscribe or whatever, but, like, Michael Stevens is authentically fucking weird, man. And some of his little shorts and the stuff he'll post on, like, the side channels or, like, the Michael's Toys series when he's just talking about, like, random little, like, things he has that he likes to play with, like, on his desk and stuff. Like, it's just great, because it just doesn't feel polished at all. And you just wonder, like, who this dude really is. And that's just great to me. I think that's so much more interesting than just, like, hey, guys, slap that Patreon with the t-shirt. I don't know. I don't know what people say anymore.
Slap the Patreon with the t-shirt.
Yes.
That's a new one. I want to see
that. It is.
Like,
yeah, I actually wouldn't mind if someone if someone just added that to their repertoire. That might make me a little more interested, actually. I'd be curious why I need to slap the Patreon with a t-shirt.
It's been years, and I mean fucking years, like 5 years, maybe more, since oh, no, it's gotta be much more than that, because, like, I remember Jacksepticeye basically became, like, when I was really into him, when he was, like, first starting, like, when he was, like, really just starting to grow, I was one of his earlier viewers, and,
interesting.
I moved to Ohio back in 2014, and I remember getting into him during that phase. So he was almost like my moving buddy, and it was like my comfort channel at that time. Like, it was kind of helping me cope with the move. And I honestly want to say I watched, gamers for like a year or two after that, and that's it. Like, it's been like 5 or 6 years since I've actively watched gamers. But like the only gaming channel I consistently watch anymore is Iniquity from Titanfall 2.
Oh, yes.
And he literally is a streamer. And it just clips.
Yep.
It's really casual. And I mean, yeah, I'm definitely the same way with all the channels that I watch. But, like, even, like, we all, like, our whole friend group, the 5 people in our friend group, and the 6th, like, floater guy that's off ruling his kingdom right now.
Ah, yes.
We all have channels, or had channels, one of us deleted it, that were in the same community around, like, dinosaur figures and stuff like that. And, like, I would constantly admit to people, and I know a lot of the other guys in the group too would admit this, but I just, like, don't watch their videos anymore, because I just like don't watch that stuff, and it's just not things I'm interested in, and we talk about it, and I've grown to really hate reviews. Well, like,
at some point, no matter how much you still enjoy collecting plastic replicas of prehistoric aminals, at some point you realize that getting into, like, the collecting community on, like, YouTube or Facebook or the Dinosaur Toy Forum or whatever, you end up just surrounded with, no offense, a lot of kids who really like Jurassic World and a lot of very just review channels that review everything and are very formulaic to that point of just feeling like more of a in-hand video, like, source more than anything you'd, like, watch for, like, the artistry of it, and Not that there's anything wrong with that stuff. You need just like very functional product review channels. Those are really useful.
Really great.
And I love that kids love dinosaurs so much. But there was a certain point where I'm like, as much as I fucking love dinosaurs and as much as I am addicted to buying ones made of plastic, this community doesn't feel like it even really represents me, or that like I don't quite fit in it, because it's a very different. I think there was a time where I fit in it more when I was younger, but then as I grew up more, I was like, I still very much relate to like the older adult collector people, but they're kind of the minority. And yeah, I don't know. It's interesting how communities will evolve, and we will evolve and stuff.
It's almost like we outgrew it.
Yeah. And I mean, I hate to admit that, because I'm always the type of person who wants to unabashedly be like, yes, I enjoy plastic dinosaurs. If you don't, fuck off.
Like, we're retaining that child within you.
While I will probably never outgrow buying, dinosaur figures or whatever, there is a point where just being surrounded by not just fellow adults who like plastic dinosaurs, but a bunch of kids who really like Mattel plastic Jurassic World blue Velociraptor toy, action figure toy. Like, it does start to feel like you're sort of intermingling with just a very charming younger generation that you can't relate to. You feel like you're in a kid's community, basically. It just starts to feel weird after a while.
And a perfect segue, and looping back into something we talked about before, is like how here in the US, like animation is often a kid's thing, but like anime is very much not a kid's thing. And I have started collecting anime ever since, this time last year when I was getting into anime. I have like a bunch of Nendroids now. I have posters up on my wall. I have a bunch of media over on my shelf, and I have my waifu plastered on my body right now. So like I've literally, obviously it's been like 6 months since I've last posted on my last channel, besides the newest video I just put up. And they're a big, like, not the biggest thing, but like honestly a big reason why I didn't want to get back into, like, I did a collection video. That's the most recent thing I did, and even that was like a pretty basic video, but I was refusing to do that for a while just because, like, well, a lot of my collection and what I want to talk about and what I want to show off is stuff that this like group of people is just not interested in, or even maybe shouldn't be interested in. And so it's like, do I really want to talk? And so I just ended up having to strap on my balls and say, fuck it, I'm just done, and this is me. I just want to show off my collection. So I did.
Yeah.
But like,
it's so funny you say that, because the last collection video I made, I like had to go over like my pen plush who's sitting in the corner and my Nendroid figure of Rey from Evangelion and stuff. I'm like, shit, there's anime stuff sitting around my room now. Like, I can't not go over it. So I just took the strategy of very like pointedly, casually just breezing past it, if that makes sense. Like, casual to the point of just being deliberate. But yeah, that works, I guess.
Oh yeah, that's a fucking penguin.
Yeah, that is a penguin with claws in the corner.
Yeah, I think you described him in a pretty funny way. I forget how that went, but
well, he is the best girl. So there's that.
Pen is best girl for sure, hands down. If anyone wants to argue, eat my ass. Damn. I honestly, I feel like we really like covered that topic pretty well, and like over it.
We're at about 2 hours ish. We're at like 150. So yeah, I guess that's about it, people. Thank you for tuning in to the first freaking episode of what's our show called? Indecent Composure. I keep wanting to say Trash Taste because you talk about that so much, and our name also has like words of garbageness in it.
Well, I swear I'm gonna end up, like, before we get into the rhythm of calling the show by its name, or the channel by its name, I'm gonna end up accidentally calling it Indecent Exposure so many times.
Oh, yes.
I know I'm gonna end up saying that.
But
Indecent Composure.
Composure. I feel very composed. Yeah, there you go. Thank you for watching, peeps. Don't subscribe, don't comment, click away, flee while you still can, and don't come back next time for whatever the hell we're going to be talking about. Possibly PNSO figures and things. Not penis O figures, as it sounds whenever I pronounce it. But
although dicks might make those figures a lot more interesting.
Can't even fucking argue with that. Anyhow, yeah. Goodbye. Thanks for watching, peeps.
Fuck you.
Have a good day.